Good afternoon and welcome back to Scandals in Megillat Esther. All right, if you are listening to this class, this is part 2 of a series. And last week we left off with several questions. We asked, the question number 1 was, when Esther finally finishes her fast and she walks into the throne room of Achashveirosh, and he says, whatever you want, I'll give you up to half the kingdom. Why does she squander that perfect moment to ask for what she wants, and instead of asking to save the people, she invites Achashveirosh and Haman to a banquet? Let's go have dinner together. That was question number 1. Question number 2, Haman's 3 charges. He makes 3 complaints about the king to the Jews, that they are scattered throughout the empire, they observe their own laws, making them different, and they don't keep the king's laws. Just start with number C. C tells me everything else. Why bother stating these 3 things? Lastly, the Megillah opens with 12 verses, 12 pesukim, about the king's glory and grandeur of his 127 provinces, his 180-day party, which sounds like fun, his riches. Why does a Jewish book, a spiritual book, start with such a banal digression, something so superficial? Why not? Why we even bother putting it? Let's get rid of that. Now, obviously, this story is much more difficult, much more complicated than a story about a genocidal villain whose bruised ego, a beautiful queen who gets very lucky at the right time, the right place, a goofy king who doesn't see what's happening underneath his nose. Obviously, the story is about something spiritual, not just the history unfolding. Now, let's look at the text again. We're going to look at Esther 5:2-3. Look at page number 1. Okay. I think we did this last week. I just don't remember. Yeah, no, we did this. Hold on a second. Let's not go there. Well, let's do this. Let's stay there again. 4:8. 1 second. 4:8. Sorry. All right. Let's start at the beginning. Okay. So, on the 3rd day, Esther donned her garments. She is standing out there. She puts on her royal clothing. She's standing in the inner courtyard of the palace, facing the palace. The king was sitting on his royal throne, and that place facing the palace entrance. When the king saw Queen Esther standing in the courtyard, she found favor in his eyes. Remember that Esther going out into the king's throne room at this point is a suicide mission. There's a 50-50 chance. And remember, we already have a statistical probability that he will kill his queen because he's done it before. So she knew going in that this is a suicide mission. I'll go in. If he likes me, he'll keep me alive. If he doesn't like me, anything could happen. Depends on the mood he's in, because Achashveirosh was unpredictable, super emotional, not logical. So she comes in, and she is, threatened over here, unclear about what's going to happen, and thank God it works out in a very positive way over here. Okay, there is no modern communication. Okay, he is the king itself is Megillah. Let's keep going. I want to get to 4. So when the king saw that Esther standing in the courtyard, he found favor. He says the king extends the scepter to her, right, and asks her to approach the bench, approach the throne. King says to her, "What is it, King Esther, the Queen Esther, that you want? What is your request? Even if it be half the kingdom, it will be granted to you." Esther says, "If it please the king, let the king and Haman come today to a feast that I have prepared for him." And we ask that question. Why does it say for him? Who is that him? Do you guys see that pasuk over there? Like, who is the him? Why is she leaving it open and so ominous? She's a smart woman. She's a nevi'ah. Okay, why does she leave this invitation in such an interesting way? Why is she leaving this as an open invitation? She has the ability of being super specific. She's not, because she is purposefully trying to do something to the king. And we see, by the way, how Achashveirosh responds. Look what he says next. The king said, "Tell Haman to hurry and fulfill Esther's bidding." Remember, he's super anxious and excited over here. Like, why is she inviting him? What is this really about? Okay. Number 6, at the wine feast, the king said to Esther, "What is your plea? Like, You came in, you put yourself at risk, you asked me, I said I'll give you anything, and you tell me instead, let's go have a picnic together with Haman. What's your problem? He says over here, it'll be granted, whatever you want, whatever you just tell me what's going on. I want you to fill me in. So what does Esther say? She says, my plea and my request, okay, if I find favor in the king's eyes, and if it pleases the king, to grant my plea and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come to the feast that I shall prepare for them. And tomorrow I shall fulfill the king's bidding. Like, again, another act of delay. It's a strange thing. Is this a tactic?
Yes.
Okay, now ladies, I want you to know, this is very dangerous pasukim over here. Because what you're watching over here is the art of manipulation. She knows that he's the kind of guy, like Donald Trump, who has zero patience, okay, is super interested if Melania was inviting Donald Trump to a dinner with some other guy in the government after he said, I'll give you whatever you want, and she's not asking for anything, something's going on, clearly, and instead, she's being somewhat deceitful, she has ulterior motives, and his wheels are turning and turning and turning. She started a whole entire engine in his head. She knows this about him. So she understands his psychology, and she's pulling the strings. This is how femininity works.
I think that's where we learn the way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Could be. There's lots of, you don't need this one. You just look back at Bereshit. That first sin came from eating. So it's definitely a way of hijacking a man and his, what's it called? Let's just review a little bit this idea of masculinity and femininity so that we see it kind of unfold and play out in the story itself. In Gemara and Bereshit, God willing, we're actually talking about maybe doing a class on Bereshit after we finish with Esther and kind of going through the stories in the beginning and learn Genesis as adults. And so if you look at the story specifically on the fourth day of creation, where the Torah talks about the creation of the sun and the moon, right? So it says, Shtei Marot Gdolot. The verse says explicitly there are two great luminaries in the sky. And then later it says that the larger one will rule over the smaller one. So the Midrash says, well, what happened? In the beginning of the verse, there are these two great luminaries, and then later they're diminished. So the Midrash says, this is a famous Midrash, that one of these luminaries complained and said there can't be two kings of the same kingdom. Okay? And the Midrash says that this was the feminine trait of the luminary. There was a masculine luminary and a female luminary. And therefore, since this feminine luminary complained, it lost its own light and was diminished and turned into a moon. Now, the ideal power dynamic between male and female should be balance. No one should have more power than the other. That's the ideal reality that we want. That's what the Torah wants. In a halachic, from a halachic place, according to Jewish law, if a man has a responsibility to provide for his wife. Now, obviously, most people can't afford a full-time babysitter and chef, right, and maid at the same time to have all those needs being met. So therefore, for most families, most scenarios, obviously this is not halacha. A man does not have to go and work. A woman could work. A man can be the one, the caregiver. A woman can be a primary breadwinner. But the ideal scenario is the male is a primary breadwinner and he's supporting his family. Now, let's say he's making enough money to alleviate her of some of her responsibilities, right? She does not have to do homework with the kids. She could afford a full-time best tutors in the world. She doesn't have to make dinner. She gets the best chefs to come and make the best meals for the family. Okay, all those things can be alleviated, and if he could afford it, he has a responsibility to alleviate them. Why? Not so she could do whatever she wants, so that she could go ahead and spend her time in developing her mind the same way that he does. Now, if you think about it, this is a very negative way of thinking about the world, but it's the way I like to think about the world, so you'll hear it from me, is that the world around us, especially in the world of business, is designed to undermine you. Right? It's just the way it is. I want to sell you something, I need to figure out a way of getting your interest, of undermining whatever guards you have, and figuring out a way of getting in there so I can get you to buy from me. So I'm trying to undermine my way in and get out. You need to have someone who is very emotionally stable, but obviously cerebrally grounded to be able to make decisions, especially big decisions, right? The big fear about a woman, and I'm not saying this is true about all women because it's definitely not true, is that most women are more emotional than they are cerebral. It doesn't mean that women don't have the intelligence to be more cerebral, because they definitely do. It's just that they spend most of their time working in a orbit where they're dealing with emotional issues. So they become the experts on emotional problems. And not saying they're not cerebral, I'm just saying, but their expertise is in a specific field. But what we want is a scenario where husband and wife are equal. They're on par with one another. So how does that happen? If she's spending all day doing diapers and he's out there negotiating some of the biggest business deals and thinking about strategies for war and politics and so on and so forth, there's a little bit of a mismatch in that relationship, right? And therefore it creates a power vacuum, a power struggle. One person who will have more power than the other person, right? And that's a problem. We don't want that. We want there to be equality. And therefore a woman has to be educated in the same way that a man is. So she should go ahead and have her own intellectual pursuits, and then therefore pursuing those pursuits and do her own thing and become her own breadwinner as well. That's what we want. An ideal scenario is these are a power couple, people working side by side, making the world a bigger, better, greater place. Okay. Unfortunately, most men don't have the ego necessary to let go and let a woman go out and do her own thing, right? Because they want to be in control. That's a problem. That's a chisaron in the man. So in the male-female dynamic, right now, the way the world works is like this. The male dominates the female. It says it very clearly in the Pasuk, in Bereshit. It says, Adam, God creates man, He created them both male and female, right? And then later it says that He blesses them, the Purim Aretz. I bless them to go ahead and be fruitful and multiply, V'kiv shuha, and He has to conquer her. So the simple reading of that pasuk is that the man has to conquer the earth. It's the context of the earth. Mother Earth is female. But Rashi says no. He says the word kipshuha, to conquer, is in the feminine, but it says chaser vav. It's missing a vav to emphasize that it's not talking about the earth, but rather it's talking about the male's responsibility to conquer the feminine. He has to be the one that conquers her. That's what Rashi says. Now, conquering does not look like Fred Flintstone coming in with a big, bat and bombing Wilma and dragging her off into a cave. That's not what we mean. Conquering is, it means that he wins her over with words. He's able to kind of like figure out what she wants and needs and provides her with her wants and needs, and that's how he wins her over. That's the conquering we're talking about. But still, the dynamic is he has to conquer her. He supporting her. He is the provider. She is the receiver. There's this dynamic. The sun is larger, masculine, the feminine is smaller. The sun is providing the light. The moon has her lost light, and now her only light comes from her masculine counterpart. That is the dynamic today. For example, if you want to understand how this plays out in a real practical way, we read about the Egel, Hazahav, right? We read about the fact that the Jewish people sinned with the golden calf. Now, what we know is that the women were not involved. Now, we also know that the whole story of the Torah and all the mitzvot were given to man so they could undo the sin of Adam. If the women were not involved, and it was only the guys, then why do the women still suffer from the curses of Adam and Eve in the garden? Do you hear the question? It's a great question. Let me explain that again to you, okay, just so it's super clear. Okay, Adam and Eve are punished. Okay, they're curses. The man has to be worked by the sweat of his brow, and the woman has all those pains in pregnancy. And it says, and he will rule over her. Another nod to this male-female dynamic. Okay, if in fact the men sinned and the women did not, that means that the women perfected themselves after Matan Torah. They did not go back down to the previous state of the Egel, which means they've already conquered the chet of Adam and Chava, specifically Chava, and therefore the curses should no longer apply to them. So the obvious question is, why is it still there? Great question, ladies. And the answer is that we live in a masculine world first. Right? And this is why we say, B'zchut nashim tzidkaniot, right? In the merit of the righteous women, the world will be saved. They have a spiritual edge. By the way, I suspect that we know from the biblical narrative that there's something called patrilineal descent. That up until Matan Torah, all boys, right, were considered Jewish if it came from the dad. And then after Matan Torah, it switched from the male to the female. I suspect it has to do with this. Women maintain a higher level of spirituality than the men, and therefore from a spiritual place, matrilineal descent makes more sense because they're the ones that are able to pass on the spirituality and no longer the men. And this is a breakdown. This is a shift that happens at Matan Torah. Women maintain a higher level of spirituality than men. And by the way, when we see females losing that spirituality, a higher connection to the spirit, we see that it has a amplified effect on the men. Right? The men don't set the tone spiritually, the women do. The men are supposed to be the ones that are excavating Torah ideas, the logic, the rigor, and so on and so forth, and bringing it out to the house. So remember, Esther represents the peak, the pinnacle of Jewish femininity. Okay, so when we see her massaging Achashveirosh's mind in a way to influence a specific outcome, how much of this was premeditated? How much of this was just, I'm going to go with the flow? Or do you think Esther went in with a strategy? So it's obvious when these psukim, she clearly had a strategy, which means that she knew her husband so well that she knew how he would think and how he would react to what she would say. Every single word that Esther says is calculated. This is not going off, my heart feels that I should say this. This is not like a beauty pageant winner, who's telling you about what she's going to do to make the world a better place. This is a brilliant woman who's a strategist who understands the masculine power, understands how to massage the ego to get the results that she wants. She's not going in for the kill. She can get whatever she wants. She walks in. And he could say, here, have my kingdom, whatever. She could have said, kill Haman. But she doesn't do that. Why doesn't she do that? She knows that's the wrong strategy with him. She knows that the only way to get Achashveirosh to actually kill Haman is if Achashveirosh begins to hate Haman. So what does she do? She plants this idea, if this is inception, in his mind that there's something going on between Esther and Haman. There's something going on over here, and I want to know what it is, Achashveirosh is saying. Why would you have this guy coming to this event? I'm the king, he's nothing but some nobleman who paid me all this money to kill the Jews. Who cares about him? Why is he invited? How come it's only the two of us? What does he have to do with me? Why are you putting Haman on a pedestal with the king? Don't you know who I am? I'm the king. Why is he coming? You're the queen. Who needs this guy? He's nothing. Okay? So this is Esther's plan. She's going ahead and she's figuring out how to dismantle in Achashveirosh's mind everything that he thinks about Haman. Haman is not my equal. Haman is some other guy. Why is she doing this? And she's planting the seeds slowly. Okay? So now, you turn the page. Let's keep turning the page for a minute. We're going to come back to that. 6-1. That's on page 4. Okay? B'layla hahu. That night. This is the same night that Esther goes ahead and plants the seeds. This is like the night before they're supposed to go ahead and have this meeting with Haman. She's preparing for the big picnic they're going to have together. And this is the night before, okay? B'layla hahu. On that night, the king could not sleep. And he commanded to bring the book of records and the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordechai had told Bigtan and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, of those who kept the door, who were sought to lay hands on the king Achashveirosh. And the king said, what honor and dignity has been done to Mordechai for this? Why is a king thinking about Mordechai or paying back people? Why is he doing this? Yeah.
He couldn't sleep because he's thinking about what Esther wanted to do.
He can't sleep at night. He's so worked up, he needs to distract himself. So what's he thinking? Now think about, yes.
There's also a commentary, it's not mine, but there's a commentary that he was wondering, if Haman's going to kill him, why didn't someone warn him? And he's wondering who his friends were, so he's trying to think,
That's deeper. Yes, this is true, that he was trying to figure out who if there's a plot against me, who's involved. Now, when you're a king of 127 provinces, remember how the Megillah begins, right? We said that the greatest challenge is that these are people, different languages, different cultures, different ideas, different beliefs, different religions, and so on and so forth. So how do you become the popular king that everybody loves? So the first thing you have to do is you have to make sure that the peasants, the plebs, are taken care of. Anyone in the realm that you can go ahead and elevate and make an example of someone who helps the king, and you put him on a platform, is a trickle-down effect. Now all the people beneath them start saying, oh, well, look how good our king is. He took a guy, a Jew, like Mordechai, and he put him up on a horse and he drove him through the kingdom. This is, wow, what a special king. Like, he really cares about the commoners. He really cares about the common people, because at the end of the day, the strength of a king is very much dependent on the people that support him, and that's going to come from the kingdom itself. The king's power comes from the kingdom, from the people. And if you don't have the people's hearts and interest in mind, you know what happens? Kings get poisoned. Kings get stabbed in the back. Kings fall. Moves very quickly. So he understands this on a broader layer, like, I need to figure out a way of protecting my kingdom. So I can't sleep right now. I don't know what's going on over here. Let me figure out who's someone I could elevate and create a narrative, spin a new narrative to make the people happy, right? So let's do that. Oh, Mordechai, here's a guy, did good things. He went ahead, he saved my life, and there's nothing been done for him. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the court, in the outer court of the king's house, to speak to the king and to hang Mordechai on the gallows that he prepared for him. So at the same time, right, Haman is thinking, okay, you know what, this is ridiculous. I keep walking outside. Mordechai doesn't bow down to me. Achashveirosh can't sleep. Haman can't sleep. They're tortured people. Right? Achashveirosh comes to the conclusion that I need to go ahead and elevate Mordechai so I could go ahead and have a tighter grip on my kingdom. Haman can't sleep because he's being so disrespected by Mordechai that he has to die. We say, Rabot machshavot b'lev ish. You ever hear that pasuk? That's right. Etzat Hashem hitakum. There are many thoughts that men carry, but at the end of the day, it's God's plan that will be established, right? And this is what's happening over here. Two gentlemen. Now, so what's interesting is two things. One is, obviously, there's no mention of God over here, right? And on the one hand, we could read the story of the king who can't sleep at night. On one level, you could say, it's God. He can't sleep at night, and it bothers him that justice has not been done properly. And how do I go ahead and reward Mordechai for all the good that he's done? So I'm going to reward him. On the other hand, you have a guy like Haman, who's the evil protagonist in the story, and he can't sleep either, right? So this is God pulling the strings. This would explain how a guy like Mamdani, right, becomes the mayor. You think he has his own free will? He does not. As Jews, we believe that whenever a person reaches a high level of political power, they lose their free will. And all they're doing at that point is literally following God's plan. That's it. If Mamdani somehow passes his 9.5% tax increase for real estate, maybe this is what Hashem wants. So we could finally say, maybe taxes are cheaper in Israel. Maybe we have to start thinking about.
They're the biggest business here. So
What's that?
they're not going to allow him to destroy the
Listen, the bottom line is, if you would have told me 2 years ago that we'd have a Muslim mayor who hates Israel, who's trying to destroy all Jewish businesses that are connected to Israel, right? I would say, impossible. This is New York. This is New York, baby. It's not going to happen, but here we are. Okay, so anything is possible.
But Achashveirosh and Haman couldn't sleep, but there's also Mordechai and Esther who couldn't sleep. How do we strategize? How do we...
Well, this is true also. So let's keep going. Let's see what happens over here. Okay, number 5. And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman, Haman's here. Why is Haman in the courtyard at night? This is weird. What's he doing in the palace late at night? And now, what do you think he's thinking at this moment? Remember that, okay? And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said to him, what shall be done unto the man who the king delighteth to honor? Now, why is that the question he's asking Haman? If I was Achashveirosh, you know what I'd be asking Haman? Why is Esther inviting you to this party tomorrow? Now, Achashveirosh is interested in one thing and one thing alone. He wants to keep his power. And he understands that the way you keep people in power is by making them happy. I'm going to give this guy honor. Let me see how he wants to honor other people. If I understand what he wants, I'll understand his psychology. I could see, by asking you, hey, what are the things that you really like? How would you do that? What are you really telling me? Well, if I asked you, what kind of gift should I buy for my wife? And you start telling me, oh, buy these things. You know what you're telling me at that same moment? You're telling me all the things that you like. These are the things I would really like for myself. So if I know that, psychologically speaking, reverse psychology, right? Now I understand a little bit about Haman's psychology. So Achashveirosh is also not a dumb guy. He's saying, okay, how would you honor somebody? And this way he knows what he's really interested in. So what does he say? He says, what shall be done unto the man of the king delighted to honor? Now Haman has said in his heart, who would the king delight to honor besides myself? He was that much of an egomaniac, right? It's got to be me. So therefore Haman said, and therefore, the pasuk is telling us what he's thinking. The pasuk is telling us about the mind of a narcissist, the mind of a male ego that is unrefined and unchecked. Okay? So he says, right, let royal apparel be brought which the king uses to wear, and the horses that the king rideth upon, and whose head a crown is set. At this moment, Achashveirosh realized that Haman is interested in the kingship. This is not just like, oh, this is what you want for somebody else. I know what you really want. You want this for yourself. This is what you want. Okay. The horse be delivered into the hand of one of the king's most noble princes. They can array the men therewith with whom the king delighted to honor and cause them to ride on horseback. Amazing. The king said to Haman, number 10, make haste and take the apparel on the horse as thou hast said, and do so to Mordechai the Jew. He's sitting at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that has spoken. Powerful, right? Look at that pasuk in Hebrew, number page 4. Haman, Maher kachet halabush v'tasus kasher dibarta v'asaked leMordechai Yehudi, Mordechai the Jew. Hayoshev b'shar Hamelech. Al tafel, don't hasten, don't take your time. Davar mikol asher dabarta, do exactly what you said, do unto him. Now, how embarrassing is it for Haman, this nobleman of Achashveirosh's kingdom, to parade a Jew around on the king's horse when he's been plotting for years to kill this guy? This is a complete reversal, right? Complete reversal. He's destroyed over here. And now he's stuck because he says no. What happens? You're dead. The king just gave you an order. This is a royal decree. This is the law. You have to do this. So he's stuck. Okay? So he can't sleep. He reads his book of his royal records. He figures out that Mordechai foiled the assassination plot by Bigtan and Teresh, and he asks if Mordechai was rewarded. He was not. Haman comes in. He gives permission. He wants permission to kill Mordechai, and the king says, no. Royal clothing, royal horse, royal crown. Put that on Mordechai. Okay? Now, remember, Achashveirosh is a paranoid king, right? He's super paranoid. Haman wants to be crowned too. What's he going to do with Haman? Now, Esther has 2 liabilities, okay? Let's look at her liabilities for a second. Let's go back to 548. I'm sorry, this is not done in an organized way. 548 is over here again. These are her 2 liabilities, okay? We did that already. Number 1, okay? The reason why, and I didn't speak about this earlier, and I should have, I forgot about that, is the reason why Achashveirosh loves Esther from all the women that he went and he looked at is because she had no identity. Why was that important for him?
She's what?
She had no identity. He didn't know that she was Jewish. She had no parents. She wasn't part of any tribe from his perspective. She kept everything quiet. She was this beautiful woman, very bright, very intelligent, and she looked like she was from every country. She blended in. She had that perfect, Vogue smile, this beautiful woman, beautiful everything about her. She glowed. Everyone related to her as the queen. And why did Achashveirosh want that? Because he wants the people to say that she is of the people. Remember, that's all part of the same thing. If I have a woman who's not from Persia, who's not from Bavel, not from Greece, not from Egypt, Libya, Lebanon, from Syria, and so on and so forth, I could pass her off as being the mother of everybody. So she is the mother of Persia. She is the mother of everybody. So now she has to play this role very carefully. She can't come in and just say, I'm a Jew. he's trying to kill me. She's got to play this very carefully. She understands that, and because she understands the psychology of Achashveirosh. We're just learning about the psychology of so number one is she has the liability of mother of Persia. If she reveals her national identity, right, she risks being seen as a charlatan or a traitor. And then she's also planted the seed of being an adulterer. Why is she inviting Haman? Why is Haman coming to the courtyard at night? Right? She planted these ideas so that so that she could confront these things with him and deal with them all at the same time. She is a martial artist, literally trying to go ahead and destroy Achashveirosh and Haman, first by capturing his mind and his imagination, and thereby getting him to do exactly what she wants. So let's look at, now we're at 7.1. 7.1 is on page, do I have it here? 7.1 is not here, but let's look at 7.3. Okay? Esther says, I am giving my life as giving my life as my request, and the life of my people as any petition, right? Because my people are going to be destroyed, they're going to be annihilated, and that's what she's going to say in a moment. V'tan Esther hamalka v'tomer im esatichen be'einecha hamelech v'im al hamelech tov titen li nafshi b'shalati v'ami b'bakashti. Right? She's saying very clearly over here, this is the banquet. They're all coming in, okay? And she's telling Achashveirosh right now, Haman's there, right? I'm asking you to go ahead and give me my life, okay? Her own life first. This is the headline. Someone's trying to kill the queen and drowning out the news of her Jewish identity. See what she did there? She didn't say, oh, he's trying to kill my people. He's trying to kill me and my people. That's a double lashon. Just tell me you're trying to kill my people, and that includes me. But no, she makes it personal. He's trying to kill me because maybe I'm not that Jewish, right? But me and where I come from. And now Achashveirosh is hearing for the first time who she actually is. Okay? And then she continues, look at number 4. For we are sold, and I and my people to be destroyed, to be slain, to be perished. But if we hadn't been sold for a bondman and a bondswoman, I held my peace, for the adversary is not worthy that the kings to be managed. So here you have a situation. This is ki ein hatzar shaveh benezek hamelech, right? This is a Esther Hamalka laying the trap. Haman is the evil guy who spent all this money and trying to get me to be killed so that he could take over your kingdom. This is all part of the process. Now we know for sure this is not God, this is Melech Achashveirosh. Okay, V'yomer Esther, Hamalka. Mi hu zeh, v'ezehu, right? Who is this person, asher milo libo lasot ken? Who is this person that is trying to go ahead and do these things to you and your people? V'tomer Esther, ish tsar v'oyev Haman hara hazeh. Okay, the person we're talking about is Haman niv'at milfnei hamelech hamalka. Okay, so here you have Haman was so terrified before the king and queen. He's the enemy. He's the guy that is destroying everything. Okay, so Esther frames Haman as the one who is the evil guy. He's the guy who is the enemy, everyone's enemy, and he's the guy who can't look past ethnic identity. He sees her as this. Haman does not see her as the mother of Persia, and now the liability becomes her asset. Here he is. Haman is trying to destroy Esther's identity. Esther says, I'm a woman of the people, right? And this guy turned me into a Jew. Achashveirosh, everything you're trying to do is create a melting pot. We're all equal. We're all the same, right? And this guy Haman is playing identity politics. Right? Oh, play identity politics? Achashveirosh, this is not what you want. This is not for you. How could you go ahead and do this? Right? So she continues. Okay? Now what happens? Look at 7:7. And the king arose in his wrath. Now, unclear. Doesn't say Amelech Achashveirosh. Amelech kam b'chamato. King arose from his wrath from the banquet of wine and went into the palace garden. So he's upset. Achashveirosh is boiling mad. He just heard from Esther that Haman wants to go ahead and kill his wife and the Jewish people. So now he's like, oh my gosh, the guy gave me all this money. What's he doing here? Is he really? And now he's thinking about everything that happened until now. Why is he coming to the palace late at night? Why did she invite him over here? What's going on over here? Maybe there's another story going on. Okay? So you have Haman, Achashveirosh, and Esther in one room. Achashveirosh is pale white right now. Holy cow. The queen just told the king that I am trying to kill, because he didn't know that she was Jewish. He didn't know who she was. He had no idea what was going on over here. He just wanted to kill Mordechai and his people. He didn't know that the queen was what's it called. But now, Achashveirosh,
Haman knew before, or
Haman did not know that Esther was Jewish. No one knew that she was Jewish,
what's like,
except for Mordechai. What?
in what time he's like actually knew she's Jewish?
Right now she's finding out.
So both of them, like,
This is her reveal. She's coming out of the closet, Kila. By the way, here's my little kippah. I'm a Jewess. I'm a Jewish girl. What do you? How can you?
funny because it took them like for a long time to prepare her to be with the king, like a year, no? And like they didn't do like investigation, where is she from?
They didn't care. She didn't say anything. She was quiet, a shy, beautiful, attractive woman who's super intelligent. Let's just run with the story. Let's just run with the story.
Like they asked, like, who is the family, like.
Let's run with the story. No one's asking any questions. Brilliant. There's no family. She says she's an orphan. She's an orphan. There's no family. Perfect. No identity. No one can claim and say that she belongs to anyone. She's an orphan. She could be anybody's child. She doesn't know. No.
Achashverosh was not a royal blood.
That's also, he didn't care. And remember, he had no problem elevating people from lower classes, right? But he still wanted to preserve his kingdom. So the king gets up on his feet, walks into the garden to think. Achashveirosh, who usually is very impulsive, over here pauses to think. This is a uncharacteristic of Achashveirosh. He's growing up a little bit in the story. Now, this is the worst possible luck for Esther. Why isn't he getting up and saying, off with his head? He's thinking. Is that scary for Esther? 100%. That's not how this is supposed to work. I organized this whole entire thing to get him all emotionally, So she, at this moment, if you pause this pasuk right here, and you think about everything we've spoken about together, she's freaking out. Oh my God, what just happened? He's the most impulsive guy. Why is he thinking why is he stopping? Keep going, right? He walks out, he's in the garden. She's alone there with Haman. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so, maybe Esther is giving Haman time for a defense. It's giving Achashveirosh to reconsider. Now, so the story keeps unfolding over here, right? Her claim is that her life is threatened is not exactly true because no one knew she was Jewish. Right? No one knew she was Jewish until she volunteered it. Right? First of all, the king could have said, yeah, it's true for everybody but you. Okay? But she hopes that he won't stop to think about it, and instead, what's he doing? He's stopping to think about it. So, from Esther's perspective right now, if we pause the drama right here, she's in trouble. Right here in this pasuk, she's in trouble. So, let's review again. What are Haman's 3 issues with the Jewish people? Right? His issue is that they are am mefuraz. They are a scattered people, a people without a land. Their laws are different, but they act like a nation, and they don't keep the king's laws. Mordechai won't bow. You have a landless people who refuse to assimilate, which is true, and it's not worth it for the king to keep these people around because l'melech ein shava la'inacham. There's no reason for the king to keep them around because the whole purpose of the kingdom and the king is to create a melting pot where everyone becomes the same. Let's create a new nation of people. Let's remove borders and boundaries. Let's remove identity. It's the same. It's so funny because I see this story as being something that's happening right now around the world.
Yes.
It's the same playbook. Nothing's changed. The same exact stuff. Different names, different places, and so on and so forth. So, Sancherev, we know, was the previous king. Okay, he conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. Remember, Israel was divided up into 2 kingdoms. The northern part and the southern part. The southern part included Yehuda and Benjamin, and the northern kingdoms were all the other tribes that were conquered first. And historically speaking, if you look at the first and even the second temple, Beit Mikdash, most of the times, all the times we were conquered, these were northern armies that came in. So the northerners were always taken first. Okay? It's much harder to get to Jerusalem. You have to bring your army uphill. Not easy to conquer Jerusalem. So Sancherev is the one that goes ahead. He conquers the northern part. Nebuchadnezzar destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. Jewish sovereignty ends with that conquering, but the Jews refuse to accept it. They maintain their own laws as if they were still a nation, and now they're brought into your land with chains, still keeping their own traditions and laws. They are not assimilating. Achashveirosh, get rid of these people. Okay? So now, the king, he's pacing in the garden. Haman could argue and say that Esther is our queen, not like those lawbreakers. She misunderstood me. He could easily spin this whole thing around, right? No one's trying to hurt the queen. He could even pressure Esther. You're mother of Persia. Don't put your lot with the refugees. You're not like these other people. You're somebody else. Why are you thinking about why are you including yourself? How do you identify yourself? Do you see yourself as a Jew? He could have easily twisted the whole thing around and got her in trouble. But he doesn't. Okay, now, let's look at 8 for a second. And then the king returned out of the palace garden into the palace of the banquet wine, and Haman was fallen upon the couch where Esther was. Now, let's just pause for a second. Okay. She just went ahead and she accused Haman of being this horrible guy who wants to kill her and her people. The king is upset. He's like, you know what? I'm going to pause for a minute. Everyone tells me to have a cooler head. Let me take a deep breath, take in the nice air of the garden, right? And he comes back in. Now, Haman is bugging out. He's freaking out. Oh my God. And he's probably pleading with Esther, Esther, Esther. Now, imagine for a moment we're in Persia. And we know Persians like their rugs. Okay? So you have this royal setup where you have a rug, a pillow, and she's probably there lying, whatever it is, on her pillow. On the side, Haman is standing up, trying to come to her to ask her for forgiveness, and he trips on this rug and falls on top of her. And Haman, is on top, and now Achashveirosh walks in. That's what's happening right here in this pasuk. Let's keep reading, right? So Haman was fallen upon the couch where Esther was, and then the king said, will he even force the queen before me in my own house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. It's over. Okay? Then said Harboneh, one of the chamberlains, that went before the king, behold, also the gala of 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who spoke of good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Now you have a regular person there. Oh, this guy Haman, the guy, Mordecai, who you liked so much, he's trying to kill him. He built a gallows for him. Think about it. The king says, I want to go ahead and I want to elevate this guy Mordecai because he saved the king. Because I want to show the common people that we could be rewarded for taking care of the king. And now Haman wants to kill him? So what's going through Achashveirosh's head? This guy wants everything. He's plotting to take my kingdom. He wants to take my wife. He wants to take the guy who saved my life away from me. He is a bad guy. Now, obviously, his tripping wasn't done on purpose. Right? His tripping was the perfect nail in the coffin for him. That's Hashem literally pulling the string. That rug.
It's on the other side with the string.
Yep. He falls on top of her, and that was the end of it. He was so angry. Okay? Now he falls on her, and he blurts out, would you even conquer Lichvosh, the queen, while I'm in my house? Now, there's a deep idea. Remember, we said kivusha is this male-female dynamic, right? So he's falling on top of her. This is classical male-female dynamic. The male is always on the upper ashlan. The woman is on the lower ashlan. There's a concept in Kabbalah called mei nukba and mei nukva, two different kinds of water. Masculine waters flow from above to below. Feminine waters flow from below to above. They go above to below, below to above. So this is that yin-yang kind of thing that's happening over here. Okay, so he's on top of her. And when he sees this, the king sees this, he says, absolutely not. Right? You're going to try to conquer the queen while I'm in the house? And the next it says, right, what does the king say? He says in his subconscious, all kinds of things are happening. And the king says the word lichvosh, which is a military term to conquest. He fears of his fear of romantic and political betrayal. To the irrational mind, he really does want to take her away from me. Haman is hung on the gallows that he built for Mordecai. Over. Done. At this moment, everything that Esther worked towards, all the things that made Esther a questionable queen, someone who was not the perfect person for the role, the most perfect person to be the one to save the Jewish people. So now, when you're reading this, it's so easy to kind of gloss over the story because, again, when we read these stories, this Megillah on Tanya and Esther that first night, we're too hungry to think about what's really happening. But if you actually slowed it down a little bit and you read these psukim over here, they're so powerful. Yes. Because there's two things happening. One is, obviously, no matter how brilliant a person is, no matter how strategic you are, everything has to fall into place for something to work. Whatever the U.S. did in Venezuela, right, with Maduro, perfect execution, perfect weather, everything they want, that is a mess. Things don't work out perfectly by themselves. When we see order, we see design. When we see something, a plan come out perfectly, execute perfectly, that is Hashem saying, I want this to happen. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. Esther is trying to save her people, right? Remember, she doesn't want to go. She says to Mordechai, I'm not the right person. I'm not a politician. I'm just a girl who's an orphan. I'm not the right person to go ahead and approach the king. I'm nothing. I'm just a woman. A woman is a second-class citizen in that kingdom. From even the queen, and from a societal place, from a male-female dynamic, the masculine leads, the female is the one that receives. What can I do? And the story of Esther is showing that no, you think that the feminine is powerless, you're wrong. The feminine power shapes the mind of the masculine. It's hard to understand it because we see power. Power is something that's tangible. Power is money. Power is a gun. Power is weapons. Power is the sword. Power isn't in the imagination. And that's where you're making a mistake. You're wrong. All the power is in the imagination. The mind determines how it perceives the world around you. And women, and I've said this before, I think, but the reason why in Judaism women cannot be counted or used for a witness is not because they're liars, it's because they're too believable. And therefore, if a woman sees something and she believes that she saw is true, and whatever she saw is true, but because her emotions are so profoundly believable, we can't take her words too seriously because it's impossible for the judges not to rule in the favor of the woman. We don't want her testimony. We're afraid of her testimony. Her testimony blinds the imagination of a man. And therefore, she can't submit that testimony. We want someone who will have no emotion, only rational, and say, this is, whatever it is, right? So Esther over here is in a position of power to shape the imagination of a man. Ladies, I hope you're paying attention over here, right? A woman's power is that she can shape the imagination of the environment that she's in. You're not some passive damsel in distress.
That's what Albert Einstein said, imagination is everything.
Oh, 100%. This is my favorite quote is from Donald Rumsfeld. Remember that was? Donald Rumsfeld was the head of the U.S. Army during 9/11. And right after, 6 months after they asked him, he said, what was the issue? How did America not see all the warning signs? So he said, no, America had everything. We had all the intelligence. This wasn't a failure of intelligence. He said this wasn't a failure in gathering information or the different networks. He said this was a failure in imagination. We couldn't imagine the scope that these people, the level of these people who go ahead and create this crime. We could never imagine it, and therefore we messed up. Imagination is everything. And women have the power of channeling and setting imagination. By the way, in a child, right? A child's own perception of himself is set by the mother and the parents, but more so the mother, right? She sets what that child, how he thinks about himself, how he thinks about the world, and so on and so forth. If she's negative, he'll have a negative outlook. Positive, he'll have a positive outlook, right? Confidence and being able to maybe sometimes overly confident is also a problem. But certainly, certainly the idea is that she sets the stage for what perception in this world looks like. And this is why it's in the merit of the righteous women that we are ultimately freed. So now, Esther, we'll agree, acts with brilliant strategy. Okay? Did we write God out of the Megillah? No. Because the interaction between human free will and divine providence is not a zero-sum game. God's name is never mentioned in the Megillah, yet we see that he's present throughout because everything that happens and unfolds in the Megillah itself is clearly being guided by some force. It's too perfect that the night before Achashveirosh couldn't fall asleep. It's too perfect that Haman decided to come that night and share. It's too perfect that Haman falls on top of Esther. It's too perfect that Esther's plan works out the way it does, because any small deviation from the plan itself that she set into motion would have had her life in jeopardy. But somehow, it all works out for the good. Despite needing to look her best for the king, Esther fasts for 3 days and asks the Jews to fast for her. She knows her strategy alone isn't enough. She needs God as a partner, and the fast seems to work against her beauty contest advantage, but she does it anyway. Meaning, if you're going to go ahead and get the king, the masculine force, to do what you want, you know what you're going to do? You're going to put on lipstick, you're going to put on your best outfit, you're going to do your hair, do your nails, you're going to do whatever you can to put your best foot forward to get you on. She doesn't do that. She fasts for 3 days. Right? She's more emaciated now than she was before. Okay? She's pale. She does it because she understands it's not enough for me to do my chitzoni, my external, hishtadlut. I need to do pnimi hishtadlut. I need to pray God. God needs to be with me. And therefore, if you're paying attention to the Rav Dessler class, it's all amelis, right? It's if you are toiling, if you really want God to do something for you, you have to put in the effort. It can't be just an external effort. There has to be an internal effort. And therefore, Esther is giving us a blueprint of how to reshape the world in a way that God will become our partners in shaping the world around us. It's not enough to say, oh, here's charity. I'm going to pray. I'm going to put myself in a situation where I really want to help this person. God has to be my partner in this. I need to bring God along. I need to bring my family along. I need to elevate them spiritually. I need to elevate the Jewish people in the zchut of the Jewish people. Fasting with me, I will have the merit to go ahead and allow God's favor to shine down on me so I can move this whole entire scenario in the favor of the Jewish people. What if Haman never showed up that particular night? What would have happened in the story? What if the king didn't have insomnia? What if the record book hadn't been open to Mordechai's page that night? Right? Esther's can strategize all she wants without a divine partner. Is just a big, elegant failure. My friends, we are not in control. Hashem is with you every single step of the way. There's no reason for anxiety. There's no reason to be upset. I've already given up on worrying about the politics of the world. I can't understand it. It's beyond me. It doesn't make any sense to me. There's some kind of greater story that's unfolding over here, and we're just part of the story on some level, and the only thing I can ask myself is, how am I going to respond to the situation that I am in? That's it. The only thing I can control is my response. I have free will. Hakol bidei shamayim, chutz mi yirat shamayim. Everything is in the hand of heaven except for the fear of heaven. Right? What does yirat shamayim really look like? Well, how much of this stuff do I believe is from God? That's it. If it's not from God, then it's just all random chance. And then you throw yourself into the camp of mazalot. And I don't want you to fall into the camp of mazalot. I don't want you to be a product of the fortune, right? I want you to remember that en mazal Yisrael, that what makes a Jew unique is that you have the power of breaking out of the mazal. You have a power of breaking out of the fortune that was scribed for you. You can become something more, but you have to believe it. You have to become partners with God, partners with Him on a spiritual path of greatness. So, what if human action and divine providence are a collaboration? What if Hashem says, you are in fact my partner? Which is what I believe Judaism believes in. Judaism believes that as Jews, we're supposed to partner with God, right? I said this earlier. I had someone who called me yesterday about financial issues, and he was complaining that everyone was calling him and asking him for money, right? His mother, his father, his wife, and he just feels like all ungrateful, right? And I said to him, you failed your test today. He's like, why? I said, because this is not about your family coming to you and asking you for money and then being ungrateful. It's you feeling small that you can't give them what they want. Because they ask you for $20, wouldn't bother you. They ask you for $100, wouldn't bother you because you have it, you give them no problem. But they're asking you for large sums of money. That's why you're upset, you're anxious about it. I said, there's no reason to have anxiety. Hashem's bigger than you could possibly imagine. And the same is true here. Hashem is our partners, right? We are a partner with God. Hashem will give some of us a large pot of soup, okay? And we have dishes on the side with a big ladle. You could stop and believe that big pot of soup is all for you. It's not. Hashem gives us what He gives us so we can dish it out to other people. The soup is there, so I could go ahead and serve each one of you the soup. All right? That is the world we're here. We are partners with Hashem. We're supposed to partner with Him, with His partnership, our action, and divine providence as a collaboration, not a competition. Hashem is the ultimate creator who made man in His image. B'tselem Elokim bara otam. We are little creators. Okay, we are in a situation where we can become the big creator. The way we become a big creator is to have a little creator join the creative project of human history with the big creator. And therefore, what we're really celebrating, and we're going to end this series with this idea over here, Purim celebrates the way Mordechai and Esther collaborate with God. That's what Purim is. Purim is a collaboration between man and God. Okay? They are able to recognize that Hashem is their partner. It didn't diminish their own contribution because the story is about them. It makes the story sweeter. Creativity is always more meaningful when it is shared. Right? We're on a project together. We have a big canvas behind me. There's something profound over there. Hashem asks us to bring our creative energies to come together. Then we ask Him to be our partner. Why should God bother if we don't bother? Why should God invest in the world around you if you're not investing? Why should God do anything for you if you're not lifting a finger? Hashem understands this one principle, and this is something that I think that we always fail to understand, is that of course God gives you anything and everything. He gives you everything. He wants to give you everything. But He knows that the second He gives you everything, what's He really doing? He's destroying you. He can't give you everything. If He gave you everything, you have no free will. He give you everything, you have no motivation. He give you everything, you're stuck. Hashem chooses to withhold all the tov so that you could stand up and be His partner. Partner with God, and you can make miracles. The story of Megillat Esther is a reminder that when the Jewish people in Galut, in exile, felt like they were abandoned, felt like there was no one there, no one listening, no one who could help them or hear their cries, the opposite is true. The two Jews that stood up to defend their Jewish values and beliefs, okay, were responsible for one of the greatest stories ever being told. A story of what we would call a natural political scenario unfolding to a degree where we can see God's providence, His divine hand, through every single step and every single verse. And that's how you have to read this. When you read the Megillat Esther, you're supposed to read it with, why is this being said like this? What are they thinking about? What's going on over here? Why does God want to unfold this way? And when you see it that way, you become partners in the Megillat Esther story. Why do we read the story of Megillat? Why are we reading the story of Megillat Esther now? We're reading at a time of the year where we are running ourselves out of the winter and we're preparing for the spring and the summer. We're preparing for Matan Torah. What is Matan Torah? Matan Torah is on Shavuot, right? We're waiting for this time where the Jewish people could elevate themselves, where they could get back to the state of Adam and Eve before the sin. That's what Matan Torah is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be climbing ourselves out of a place of depression, out of a place of angst and anxiety, out of a place of uncertainty, into a place of certainty, into a place of confidence, into a place of spiritual growth, and so on and so forth. You cannot grow if you are unhappy. You cannot build if you are unhappy. You cannot achieve any of your goals if you are depressed. It doesn't work. What's the mitzvah of Adar? Mishnech Adar, Marbim besimcha. What is the greatest simcha in the world? We say this. What's that? What do you want to say? The greatest simcha. Greatest simcha in the world is
working towards something.
En simcha kahatarot hasfekot. That's what the Gemara says. There's no greater happiness than the resolution of doubts. Right? That's what Amalek wants to do. It wants you to doubt, right? But what the Gemara is saying, I think, is what this particular month is about. Yes, Amalek is the same gematria as Safek, as doubt. Safek and Amalek are equal to one another. That's what Amalek wants to do. But the greatest simcha in the world is no more doubts. That is the great. Now, what is the doubt that we all have? As Jews, certainly, how do I know this is all true? I get it all the time. Rabbi, how do I know this is all true? Does God really care if I am putting on tefillin, not putting on tefillin? Does He care about whether I keep Shabbat, don't keep Shabbat? Does He care about if the salad was checked for bugs or not checked for bugs? Does He care about the minutia? The doubt. Imagine living in a world free of doubt. That is the greatest simcha. Knowing that you as a Jew, okay, have done everything you possibly can to be the best Jew you could possibly be. That is simcha. Real happiness is not winning the lotto. It's not even going to the gym and seeing the results. Simcha in Judaism is knowing that you are doing what your soul is meant to be doing. That is simcha. So in the month of Adar, we ask ourselves the questions like Esther and Mordechai did. Am I doing what I'm meant to be doing? Because Mordechai says to Esther, if you don't do it, don't worry about it. Someone else will do it. Your name will be forgotten. Your family will be forgotten forever. This story and the month is about standing up and remembering that, my friends, that you each have a story to tell. And the more you partner with Hashem and believing that you have the power of influencing the narrative, of shaping the minds of the people in your lives, the more you bring Kedusha into this world, the more we get one step closer to bringing Mashiach, the more we step into a world where we could bring Simcha, we could bring Tov, we could bring all that good that it all too often feels like it's lacking in the world around us. B'ezrat Hashem, we will achieve those goals for ourselves, bring ourselves to a place of Simcha, and remove the uncertainty and the doubt in the world so we can live in a world of light, happiness, and success. Wishing you all a Purim Sameach, B'ezrat Hashem. All right, that's the end.